How the Mayflower Compact planted the seeds of American democracy. When the Mayflower anchored off the coast of Cape Cod on the morning of November 11, 1620, a group of weary English separatists, later known as the Pilgrims, knelt in prayer, giving thanks to God for guiding them across the vast and furious ocean. But before they could step ashore and begin building their new lives, they had to solve a major problem. How would they govern themselves, especially with people who didn't share their religious beliefs or vision for the colony? The answer became one of the most influential documents in American history, the Mayflower Compact. What was the Mayflower Compact? The Mayflower Compact was a short agreement, drafted and signed aboard the ship, designed to bind all passengers, pilgrims and non-pilgrims, strangers alike, and/or one civil government. It established a basic form of self-rule and majority decision-making for the good of the entire colony. It was a first step toward democratic government in the New World, a social contract created by ordinary people, not kings. A voyage gone off course. Originally, the Pilgrims had signed a contract with the Virginia Company to settle near the Hudson River, in what was then considered Northern Virginia. Investors in England had financed the voyage, expecting the settlers to build a profitable colony under the company's jurisdiction. To increase their chances of success, the Pilgrims invited a number of other passengers, craftsmen, tradesmen, and laborers, along with their families, to join the voyage. The Pilgrims referred to them as strangers since they didn't share the goal of religious separation from the Church of England. However, bad weather and navigational errors blew the Mayflower off course, and instead of Virginia, the ship landed at Cape Cod, well outside the jurisdiction of the original charter. Some of the strangers questioned the authority of the Pilgrim leaders, arguing that the contract was void outside Virginia. According to William Bradford, some began making discontented and mutinous speeches, declaring that no one had the power to command them, a covenant to work together to avoid chaos. The settlers decided to draft a new agreement before disembarking. The Mayflower Compact declared loyalty to King James I, a shared commitment to Christianity, a pledge to form a civil body politic, a promise to pass and obey just and equal laws for the good of the colony. Though the document affirmed their allegiance to the English crown, it marked the beginning of self-government in the colonies. Most importantly, it brought both groups, pilgrims and strangers, together under a single set of rules. According to Nathaniel Morton, a relative of Bradford, 41 adult male passengers signed the compact, including indentured servants. Shortly after, the settlers elected John Carver as the first governor of the new colony, which they would call Plymouth Plantation. Religious covenant meets political contract while rooted in the separatist tradition of church covenants. The Mayflower Compact also reflected secular political philosophy. It anticipated the social contract theory later developed by Enlightenment thinkers like Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the idea that governments derive their authority not from divine right, but from the consent of the governed. Historian Rebecca Fraser wrote in The Mayflower, The Families, the Voyage and the Founding of America that Plymouth Colony was the first experiment in consensual government in Western history between individuals with one another, and not with a monarch. The compact was also inclusive in spirit. While clearly a religious document, it did not specify a particular denomination or method of worship. This allowed both the separatist pilgrims and the Anglican strangers to accept its terms and live under its authority. The compact's lasting legacy, though the Mayflower Compact was only a few paragraphs long, its influences echoed for centuries. It established the idea of self-government and majority rule, was the first written constitution in the New World-inspired key. American documents like the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, as John Quincy Adams noted in 1802, the compact was perhaps the only instance, in human history, of that positive, original social compact, which speculative philosophers have imagined as the only legitimate source of government. Conclusion: a simple document with revolutionary impact born out of necessity, cooperation, and faith. The Mayflower Compact laid the groundwork for what would eventually become American democracy. It proved that a group of diverse individuals, many with opposing goals, could choose to govern themselves, not by force, but by mutual agreement. And that principle remains at the heart of the American political experiment to this day.